The Humane Society of Carroll County, Maryland, had just opened for the day when a man walked in, struggling to hold an enormous ginger and white cat in his arms. The receptionist's eyes widened as she took in the sheer size of the feline, who barely fit in the man's grasp. The man's uncomfortable expression suggested this was no casual visit. As he approached the desk, the man readjusted the hefty cat and explained his reason for coming. He claimed he needed to surrender the cat, whom he introduced as Edgar, because he wasn't a good fit for their family. According to the man, Edgar didn't get along with the young children in their household and was too aloof for their lively home. His tone was curt, and his explanation felt rehearsed. The receptionist nodded politely but couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. Over the years, she had developed a keen sense for when something wasn't right, and this situation sent up red flags. Edgar didn't look aloof. He looked scared and defeated. She glanced at the cat, noting his wide, wary eyes and tense posture. Though she kept her thoughts to herself, she suspected the truth was less about Edgar's temperament and more about how the family had treated him. It wasn't uncommon for children to be too rough with pets when they hadn't been taught proper boundaries, and Edgar's forlorn expression only fueled her suspicions. Without hesitation, the man placed Edgar on the floor. He didn't pet him goodbye, didn't even look back as he turned and hurried out the door. The receptionist watched, stunned, as he left, seemingly eager to wash his hands of the cat. Turning her attention to Edgar, she knelt beside him. Despite his imposing size, the cat looked small in his fear, his body tense and uncertain. Moving slowly to avoid startling him, she reached out her hand. To her surprise, Edgar leaned into her touch, rubbing his head against her fingers and purring loudly. The receptionist's heart softened. This was no aloof animal. Edgar's gentle nature and instant affection made her question everything the man had said. What had truly gone on in that household? Whatever it was, she vowed Edgar would now get the care and kindness he deserved. Edgar had joined the family as a playful young cat, but it wasn't long before his rapid growth left everyone astonished. His size became a fascination for the family's young children, who assumed that because Edgar was so large, he didn't need gentle handling. Unfortunately, their constant rough play, loud shouting, and lack of boundaries turned life into a nightmare for the poor cat. Edgar tried to escape their unruly behavior by hiding, but his sheer size made it nearly impossible. No matter where he sought refuge, the children always managed to find him. Though naturally affectionate, the constant stress and fear pushed Edgar to his limit. He became defensive, a response born out of survival rather than aggression. Rather than teaching the children to treat Edgar with kindness and respect, the adults blamed the cat for his behavior. Unable, or unwilling, to address the root of the problem, the family decided to surrender him to the shelter. Now, through no fault of his own, Edgar found himself abandoned. At the Humane Society, Edgar stretched out on the cool tiled floor, his massive frame taking up an impressive amount of space. For the first time in what must have been ages, he seemed at ease. The bustling shelter staff moved around him, their curious glances betraying their amazement. Edgar, in turn, seemed unbothered, content to observe his surroundings. His size created quite a stir. At a hefty 21 pounds, Edgar wasn't just heavy. He was tall and muscular, his shaggy fur hinting at Maine Coon ancestry. The shelter staff speculated he might be part Maine Coon, known for their impressive size and affectionate disposition. Edgar's gentle nature seemed to confirm it, despite the hardships he had endured. As the staff continued their day, Edgar's relaxed demeanor drew smiles from everyone. They couldn't help but admire this gentle giant, marveling at how, even after everything he'd been through, he radiated a quiet resilience. For Edgar, the shelter felt like a place where he could finally breathe. And for the staff, it was clear that this remarkable cat deserved a second chance at a life filled with kindness and love. When a new animal arrived at the Humane Society, the staff's top priority was crafting a plan to find them a loving home. While they grew attached to each animal, their mission was to ensure every one of them found a family as quickly as possible, provided they were healthy and well-behaved. Edgar, the gentle giant, had already won their hearts. His health check confirmed he was fit and thriving, and the way he rolled onto his back to invite belly rubs made it clear that he was as affectionate as he was unique. The staff were determined to place Edgar in a home where he could finally relax and enjoy the love he deserved. His days of stress and fear were over. Their first step was launching a social media campaign to showcase Edgar's charm. With his enormous size and striking ginger fur, they knew he'd attract attention. They snapped a series of playful and endearing photos, highlighting his sweet personality and Maine Coon-like features. Within moments of posting, Edgar's pictures began making waves. The shelter was thrilled to see Edgar's story go viral. His photos and description had struck a chord with animal lovers, sparking widespread admiration and interest. It seemed only a matter of time before the perfect adopter came forward. And that's exactly what happened. Jenna, scrolling through her Facebook feed, paused when Edgar's photo popped up. She stared at the screen, captivated by his towering frame and warm, golden fur. Jenna, a lifelong cat lover, had never seen a feline quite like him. Beyond his size, there was something in Edgar's eyes, a softness, an unspoken connection that drew her in. Curious, Jenna quickly searched for information on Maine Coons. She learned that they were intelligent, gentle, and affectionate, traits that made Edgar even more appealing. Jenna already had a cat, Loki, who was playful and full of energy. She'd been considering adopting a companion for him, and Edgar seemed like the perfect match. Excited, Jenna showed Edgar's post to her boyfriend, Rich. He was equally impressed and agreed they should visit the shelter as soon as possible. Jenna couldn't shake the feeling that Edgar was meant to be part of their family, and she couldn't wait to meet him in person. The shelter was bustling with activity when Jenna and Rich arrived, but a staff member quickly escorted them into a quiet room where Edgar lay stretched out, seemingly unbothered by the commotion. Jenna approached cautiously, eager to make a good first impression. To her delight, Edgar greeted her with a soft purr and a gentle nudge of his head against her hand. His affectionate nature was immediately clear, but when she scratched behind his ears, Edgar's full personality came to life. He rolled onto his back, purring loudly, his contented expression melting Jenna's heart. When she paused, Edgar nudged her insistently as if asking for more attention. Jenna laughed, charmed by his antics. It was love at first sight. After completing the adoption paperwork, Jenna and Rich brought Edgar home. Just 3 hours had passed since his surrender, and he was already beginning a new chapter. The shelter staff couldn't have been happier. It was a perfect outcome. Jenna was equally excited, eager to see how Edgar would fit into her family and how Loki, her cat, and Thor, her chihuahua, would react to the newcomer. But when they arrived home, things took an unexpected turn. Loki and Thor eagerly came to greet the new arrival but stopped in their tracks at the sight of Edgar. Loki, usually confident, froze, his smaller frame dwarfed by Edgar's size. Thor, who was barely the size of Edgar's head, backed away cautiously. Both animals kept their distance, clearly unsure about the giant cat. Jenna and Rich decided to take things slowly. They let Edgar explore the house while Loki and Thor stayed in a separate room. They hoped time and patience would allow the trio to adjust to one another. Meanwhile, Edgar roamed his new home, investigating every corner with curiosity. After completing his rounds, he stretched out for a nap, exhausted from his eventful day. Jenna and Rich watched him sleep, confident he'd settle in nicely. However, when Edgar woke up just 30 minutes later, something seemed different. The once energetic and affectionate cat now appeared lethargic and withdrawn. He showed no interest in exploring further or interacting with Jenna or Rich. Concern washed over Jenna. Something was clearly wrong with her gentle giant, and she knew she needed to figure out what was happening. Jenna couldn't shake her worry. The cat lounging lethargically before her didn't resemble the lively, affectionate Edgar they had met at the shelter or even the curious explorer who had eagerly investigated his new home earlier. Rich tried to reassure her, chalking it up to the stress of transitioning into a new environment, but Jenna's gut told her otherwise. "We don't know much about his history," she said, "and I'd feel better if we had him checked out by the vet just to be safe." At the veterinary clinic, Edgar seemed to have deteriorated further. His lethargy and distant demeanor were now impossible to ignore. Jenna's concern deepened as she explained his sudden change in behavior. The shelter had assured them Edgar was healthy and up to date on his vaccinations, but something was clearly wrong. Jenna wasn't prepared for what the vet would uncover. After a thorough examination, the vet delivered the first piece of troubling news. Edgar had a mild heart condition. While it wasn't life-threatening, it had likely been exacerbated by stress. Reflecting on the shelter's account of Edgar's rough treatment by his previous family and the events of the past day, Jenna's heart sank. The idea of losing Edgar so soon, after everything he'd endured, was unbearable. This gentle giant deserved peace and happiness, not more hardship. The vet ran additional tests, leaving Jenna and Rich in a state of anxious waiting. Edgar might have only been with them for a short time, but Jenna already felt a deep connection. She envisioned giving him the life he deserved, one filled with love and care. The thought of that being taken away left her feeling helpless. Finally, the vet returned. Jenna searched his face for clues, her heart pounding. Then came the words she desperately hoped to hear. "It's good news." Relief washed over the couple as the vet explained that Edgar's condition was manageable. With regular checkups, careful monitoring of his weight, and stress management, Edgar could live a long and happy life. Medication might be necessary in the future, but for now, gentle exercise and a calm environment would suffice. Jenna hugged Edgar tightly, vowing to do everything in her power to ensure he thrived. Edgar's journey had been difficult, but now, with Jenna and Rich, he had the chance to live the life he truly deserved. Over the next few days, Jenna and Rich focused on helping Edgar settle into his new home. The unthinkable news about his heart condition, delivered mere hours after adopting him, had left them shaken, but they were determined to give him the best life possible. Edgar hadn't had much time to adjust to his new environment, but Jenna followed the vet's instructions carefully, ensuring a calm atmosphere and encouraging gentle interaction with Loki and Thor. At first, Loki and Thor were cautious around the massive cat. Loki, usually the confident one, kept a respectful distance, while tiny Thor watched from afar, unsure of how to approach the gentle giant. But as the days went by, their apprehension began to fade. Edgar's calm and friendly demeanor reassured them that he wasn't a threat. He just wanted to be part of the family. Loki was the first to break the ice, initiating a playful game with Edgar. Thor stayed close, observing the interaction, until he eventually mustered the courage to join in. Jenna was relieved to see the trio beginning to bond. Edgar seemed to sense their acceptance, and his transformation was remarkable. As the tension left his body, he embraced his new family, becoming more affectionate and livelier with each passing day. Soon, Edgar, Loki, and Thor were inseparable. The unlikely trio could often be found lounging together in patches of sunlight or curled up on the bed. Despite their size differences, Loki, a sleek cat, and Thor, a tiny chihuahua next to the towering Edgar, they were a perfect team. Edgar's gentle and loving nature shone through, cementing his place in the household. Watching Edgar thrive, Jenna couldn't help but reflect on the account given by his previous family. Their description of him as defensive and aloof now seemed almost incomprehensible. It was clear that the poor cat had been deeply stressed and mistreated in his old environment. Edgar's transformation in a loving, patient home only reinforced Jenna's resolve to give him the life he deserved. Edgar had finally found his place. The gentle giant had not only recovered from his ordeal, but also forged a beautiful bond with his new family, proving that love and kindness could heal even the most broken spirits. Edgar's calm and loving demeanor was a world away from the description his previous family had given when they abandoned him at the shelter. Jenna couldn't comprehend how they had blamed Edgar for his behavior instead of teaching their children to handle him with care. Their loss, however, was her family's incredible gain. Edgar had become a cherished part of their lives, and they couldn't imagine their home without him. Caring for Edgar proved to be no trouble at all. Monitoring his weight and stress levels, as the vet recommended, became a natural part of their routine. He seemed happier than ever, spending his days playing with Loki and Thor or lounging contentedly. When he wasn't chasing toys or engaging in gentle tussles with his furry companions, Edgar would often seek out Jenna or Rich for a cuddle. True to his size, he sprawled out as much as possible during his naps, taking up an impressive amount of space, but they didn't mind. Seeing him so relaxed and affectionate filled their hearts with joy. As the months went by, Edgar settled seamlessly into his new life. His bond with Loki and Thor grew stronger, and their unusual trio became a constant source of laughter and love in the house. Jenna often marveled at how perfectly he fit into their family, as though he had always been meant to be there. Jenna couldn't help but reflect on how a moment of idle scrolling on Facebook had led her to Edgar. She had clicked on his photo without a second thought, but it turned out to be one of the best decisions she had ever made. Edgar had found his forever home, a place where he was safe, loved, and free to be his affectionate, playful self. Looking at Edgar now, curled up peacefully in the sunlight, Jenna knew he had truly found his place in the world. For her family, life with the gentle giant was better than they could have ever imagined.